Welcome back to Inside the Zone. We've broken down week 2 of the high school football season. Now it's time to take a look at week 3, and a very interesting week because although the SAC and the NECC have already started conference play begins this week for the NHC and the ACAC. And I want to take a look at the NHC first because it's kind of jam-packed at the top with teams that we've seen play very well, I should say, out of conference in Belmont and Homestead. Heading into the conference season, what do you see so far?
Well, the big game this week is the Homestead at East Noble game. East Noble gave up over 600 yards of offense in week 1 in their loss. They did play much better this week, but I don't think they're at the level of Homestead. Homestead really impressed me with what they did against Warsaw this past week, and they look like they've replaced a lot of people off last year's team with good young players coming in, and they've got some seniors too that are solid as well. But Homestead's playing exceptionally well right now.
Is this the time where we kind of figure out where Belmont's made of right here in the conference? Because, as we mentioned a little earlier, they've been dominant, especially in that run game, but they really haven't faced as many physical teams as they will once the NHC gets rolling.
No, it's very similar to college football. Once you get into conference play, your true self really shows, and that's what Belmont's going to do over the next few weeks. They have at Norwell in week 4, and then they have Homestead the week after that. So we'll know much more about Belmont and really how good they are after those weeks. But so far, they've been phenomenal.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Have you been impressed with what they've been able to do? Because they replaced this year an entirely talented group of seniors off last year's squad. They replaced Trent Bussey. They replaced their quarterback, who was a running quarterback, in Joel Bone. And they have 3 guys go over 100 yards, over 400 yards of rushing offense this past week.
Yeah, they're averaging 45 points a game, so they're obviously offensively they're tremendous. Now defensively, they've only given up, I believe, 6 points, so you can't find fault there either. So they're doing it on both sides of the ball. They're doing it with brand new coaching staff. Even though those 2 co-coaches were assistants last year, they're still new voices in leading the program. So I'm very impressed with what Belmont's done so far.
Speaking of impressive, Norwell also one of the teams in the NHC that goes into conference play 2-0 in non-conference. What have you seen from them, and can they become a contender as far as the conference championship goes, or do they have the firepower necessary for that?
I'm not sure if they can get quite to the top, but they're certainly going to be in the upper echelon. They looked very good at Heritage this past week. Didn't allow Heritage to score at all. And Clay Fichter was good, but he wasn't dominant like he was the first week, and they showed they had other guys that could step up and play well. But really, their defense carried them this past week, and if they can get that good of defensive play week in and week out, yeah, they'll battle the best in the league, but I really don't think they'll be able to win the league this year.
You mentioned East Noble and Homestead going to be one of the big games to watch this week. What does East Noble have to do? Because on paper, they're 1-1, close to loss in week 1. They bounce back and play well in week 2. What are they going to have to do?
Well, they played well, but they played a team that has historically struggled, and so they need more consistency out of their quarterback, A.J. Dove. He did not have a good week in week 1, but he did have a solid week in week 2. So they have to be solid offensively and consistent with their passing game if they have any chance at all of beating a Homestead team that looks like they're for real. I mean, anybody that can put a licking on Warsaw, because Warsaw is a tough team, the Spartans must be for real this year.
So you say it's Homestead and Belmont right now, the teams to really look at.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move along to the ACAC. And actually, if you take a look at the numbers, some surprises at the top. You see Adams Central at 2-0. The numbers are pretty dominant for them. Just talk a little bit about the surprise of them, because they're replacing a legendary head coach down there.
Well, they are. A number of programs in the area are replacing longtime coaches this year, and a lot of them aren't skipping a beat. And that's a testament to the head coaches that were there and grooming assistants. But Adams Central, they've been perfect defensively. They haven't given up a point yet. If they can do that, I think they'll win the state championship this year. But
all they have to do is keep it up.
That's right. Just don't give up any points whatsoever. I like your chances of winning. But Adams Central hasn't played a very tough schedule so far. And now that they're getting into the league play with bigger schools, you're going to learn a lot more about them. But give them kudos. They played great so far. But now it's for real.
And speaking of for real, Southern Wells, much like Belmont, they lost a lot of seniors off a running team last year. We were wondering how they were going to replace those guys. They've done well so far, but again, now's the time where they're going to have to make their hay.
Yeah, I think we'll learn a lot about them against Garrett this year, or this week, I should say. Garrett probably won't beat Southern Wells, but they'll give them a much tougher test than what Southern Wells has seen the first 2 weeks. They haven't played anybody yet, Southern Wells I'm speaking of, but they have run the ball well. Defensively, they've only given up 14 points. So we'll learn more about Southern Wells this week, but I think they'll be able to get past Garrett.
I know those two teams we just talked about are 2-0, and Leo is just 1-1. But you have to be feeling pretty good if you're the Lions, the way you laid it on Whitco and the way you were able to do it really in the first two quarters and come out 35-0 at halftime.
Right, and their only loss is to Norwell, who's a great team. So Leo is a nice, solid, growing team that's getting better every single week. And I predicted them to win the league at the beginning of the year. I'm going to stick with them. I think it'll be Leo and Heritage, really, that ends up battling it out for that league title. I just think Southern Wells and Adams Central, they're good against the smaller schools, but once they get into the bigger schools, they're going to struggle a little bit. So I look for Leo to really have a good game against Adams Central and prevail.
And Heritage was the next team I really wanted to talk about, because what have you seen from them so far? They've got a good history for that program, but what have they really improved on this year that's allowed them to take a little step up from what they had last season?
Well, they lost 17-0 to Norwell, so that leads you to believe that maybe they didn't play well defensively. They actually played phenomenally defensively. They gave up 3 big plays to Clay Fichter, and that was it. And that ended up being the ball game. And then they, like I had said earlier, they got the ball to the 1-yard line, couldn't punch it in, had a broken play, and so they struggled from that regard. But defensively, they looked great last week against Norwell. So that's why I think Heritage will be able to battle Leo for the conference title this year, because their defense is so solid.
You certainly think they're one of the teams that may improve week to week, and by the end of the season kind of be there.
Certainly. They're always a program that gets better at the end of the year.
All right. That's Tom Davis from the News Sentinel, wrapping up our coverage and taking a look at the NHC and the ACAC as their conference play begins this Friday night. Of course, we'll have more here on Wayne.com throughout the week. He'll have it in the paper. And thanks for watching Inside the Zone.